Hello there and welcome to another video from Change Tips and Tools, and it's me, Phil, the Brummie that hails from Birmingham, England. And today I wanted to revisit the resource capacity planning template that we've built together in Excel using Power Query and Power Pivot, and really learning some fantastic and powerful techniques in Excel. And I think she's been really popular as a template as well with you guys. What I wanted to do is take this a little bit further now, because I think as a PMO and as a project management professional within any organization, I think there are new tools that we need to get to grips with that really make our lives and our user lives much more simpler and value add as far as what these tools can do for them. And what I'm talking about is almost the revolution of Power BI, SharePoint, almost the revitalization of SharePoint because it's been around a while, and also using PowerApps and Power Automate. So what I decided to do as an exercise over the coming weeks is I wanted to attempt to take this resource template that I've done in Excel and replicate it by combining SharePoint, PowerApps and Power BI. And I wanted to go on that journey with you guys and show you how I go about recreating this. And I think the first thing that I'm going to look at is how to create our static data, and we're going to start off with looking at this categories table here. So here is the first screen that we're going to create together, which is going to be our static data categories, where we can edit, we can add new records, we can update existing, or we can delete those records from here and we can then save them back to SharePoint, or we can just undo the changes and make no changes on SharePoint. And the beauty of this is that it means our users can not only use it in an internet experience, but also we can look at it from a tablet. So if they're using like an iPad, for example, they can make their changes and they get the same functionality, within the iPad experience. Or if they don't have an iPad, they have a smartphone. So here we've got a smartphone experience, and again they can use it on their smartphone and make those changes. So what I'm going to do, and if I go back to viewing it in a browser, is take you through step by step how I built this. First, creating the list in SharePoint, and then building this first screen step by step. So if that interests you, let's stay with me and let's build our first form together step by step. Let's do this. So let's create our first list on the Change Tips and Tools training site, SharePoint site. So I'm going to do from the home screen here, I'm going to do new, drop down, I'm going to select list. I'm going to select a blank list here, and I'm going to call it categories, like so, and do create. So there's my blank list. I want another column, so this will be the title column we'll use for the category. We need to create the priority, so I'm going to plus sign to add a column. I'm going to choose a number type and do next. And over here on the right, I'm going to name it as priority. It's a number. I don't want it to have any decimal places, so I'm going to change that to 0, and the default will be a 0, like so. If I save that, there's my priority. Now I can rename this column here. In the list, I'm going to go into list settings here because I want to change some settings on the title. So I'm going to go list settings, And here on the top, so there's the priority that I just created, and here's the title. I want to make sure that this is unique, it enforces unique values, because I don't want people entering duplicates in there, and also I'm going to limit the number of characters in there, and I'm going to click OK. It's just warning me that this column needs to be indexed for unique values. I'm just going to click OK, and there you go. And then I click categories. The only other thing I'm going to do here is if somebody goes into SharePoint, I can just go column settings, rename. I'm just going to rename that to category. And save it. And there you go. So I'm going to put one record in here for the purpose of what we're doing. So I'm going to add a new record here. So I'm going to do add new item. And you can see it's a pretty basic form. I'm just going to do the Windows key and then semicolon to bring up the emojis. I'm going to select that, space, and yet mandatory. That's what I want. And I'm going to give this a priority 1 and save it. So I've got one item in there as far as a record. I'm then going to go to PowerApps, and the way that you get to PowerApps is in your URL just type make.powerapps.com in the URL, and it will take you to the PowerApps. And you should be either logged into your, if you're at home, your personal account, or at work you'll be logged into your work environment, and it will ask you to log in with your work Windows ID the first time round. So once you've done that, I'm going to click the create button here over on the left, and I'm going to select start with a blank canvas. And for the purposes of today's exercise, I'm going to use the tablet size. And there we go. So the first thing I want to do is, because we're eventually going to have a number of screens that we're going to navigate between. So we're doing the categories one, but I want to create a template first. So over on the left here, just sort of a bit of logistics. We've got the tree view here, which is what we're looking at the moment. We've then got the insert button here. We can also insert from the top bar as well. We can see our data connections, and we can see the variables and collections that we've created, and we can look at them in here. So I think one thing I'm going to do here is I am going to add a data connection to this, and I'm going to search for SharePoint. And there it is. I'm going to select it. Because I've logged into SharePoint before here, I'm just going to select the SharePoint connection. And over here on the right, I'm going to choose Change Tips and Training, Tools Training, SharePoint site. And there's that categories list that we've just created. I'm going to select that and then click Connect at the bottom. So we've now connected a data source, and you can connect multiple data sources or multiple lists to your PowerApps. I'm going to go back to Tree View, and I'm going to do Save, and I'm going to call this Resource Management App. Do Save. Now saved it, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Settings, and I'm going to change Updates. On the Updates here, this Modern Controls and Themes, I'm going to switch that on. So I've got the Modern Controls, and click Close. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a header because I want to create a template. So I'm going to rename this screen as my template. Can't type. Hit enter. So I've renamed this. So I'm going to insert a shape, which is going to be a rectangle. Let's put that at the very top, and I'm going to grab these handles here and just drag it across. And I'm going to rename this rectangle as header. like so. I'm then going to insert, I want a label here to represent, so the header. I'm going to insert this text here, and let's just make it a little bit, just the height, of the handles, just make it a little bit bigger, like so. And again, I'm going to change this to be text. Header, like so, and hit return. It's always good practice to name, to give your items and your controls meaningful names. And then over here, I'm going to say, as far as the text is concerned, so I can either do it here or I can do it here in the bar against the property. So I can find the property and do it here, but I'm going to do it over here on the right in this instance. And I'm going to type templates hyphen header. Hit return. Let's make it center aligned and let's make it vertically in the middle. Let's change the size to be 50, the font size, and let's make it white, and let's make it bold. There we go. So that's the header. Now, one of the things I want to be able to do is when the user logs into this, it welcomes them and it recognizes who they are. So what I'm going to do is on the header here, I'm going to insert media. So in the media options, I'm going to insert an image. Drag this over to the right. Just make it a little bit smaller, just so it fits in like so. Yeah. And then within the image property here in the bar, I'm going to type user. Let's get rid of that, do user. Close the bracket on the user function and do dot, full stop, and I'm going to use the image. So it's going to, and there you go. It's recognized based on my login who I am, and it's pulled it out there. I'm also going to say a welcome message here. So I'm going to insert another label, text label. Let's move this over. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Height and width. And let's just move it so it's touching the image. As far as the text, let's make it 16. Let's make it white. Let's make it semi-bold, shall I? As far as the alignment's concerned, let's make it at the end. So that's right justified. And vertically, let's put it at the bottom. I'm just going to add a bit of padding on the right hand side here. So on the right, let's give, so that's that one there. So top, bottom, right, left. Let's give a padding of 5. Return. Okay, now let's make that text. So let's change it. I'm going to say user. Let's call that user. Hit return. Let's rename this image while I'm here. Image user. Hit return. So with the text, what I'm going to do is in the text bar here, I'm just going to change this text to be more dynamic. So first of all, I want it to do welcome. Yeah. And close the quotation marks. I'm going to do the ampersand. And I'm going to use the character control function. So 10, which basically forces a new line. The ampersand, and then do user function again. And this time, full stop, I want the full name. There you go, it recognizes who I am. I'm going to ignore that, it's giving me screen tips. I'm going to ignore that. So So that's good as a template. So I'm just going to hit save. Oh, it saves automatically after a period of time anyway. So I'm happy with that as a template. Let's also do something with the background here. So with the screen selected, I'm going to choose background. I'm going to choose this lighter blue here. Yeah, I like that. And then save. Right, I think that's good as a template. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate that. So right click on it and do duplicate screen. So it's literally duplicated everything and just added a -1 on the end of it. I'm just going to move that up to the top. Yeah. Then I'm going to rename this screen to be screen categories. Like so. Boom. And let's change the header to be static data hyphen categories. See if I'll type that in. That's good. That works. Okay. And hit save there. So now I want something to pull the data in from SharePoint. So one of the things I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a button because I'm going to use collections and use the patching functionality rather than use form controls because it gives me more flexibility. So I'm going to insert a button here. I'm going to call this add, well, text in it, add data. Return. As far as the button name is concerned, I'm just going to do BTM for button, add cat data. And then within this on select, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to expand the bar here. Just drag this down so you can see what I'm doing. So instead of saying on select false, I'm going to do clear collect. So this is where I'm going to create a collection and clear it every time. If I just do collect, it will add append things to that collection. So I'm going to call my collection COL, and I'm going to call it category data. So that's my collection name, and it's coming from my category. So that connection that I made, I'm linking to the categories list. If I do that, and then if I just press the button, so I'll hold down the Alt key to press the button, and then if I look at that category and do the table, you can see it's pulled through that record there from SharePoint, and there you go. Yeah, wonderful. So that's working. So what I'm going to do also then is here on the visible property of the screen is I'm just going to type select. It's going to be that button control, add cat data. So each time I select it, it will refresh and load that data. Yeah, wonderful. And there you go. And then I can make the property of this the visible property, so it's not visible. I can make that false. There you go. So I've now got the data connection, I've got my template created, and we're starting to create the categories. It's now time to build the actual data presentation and flow, and I'm going to use containers and a gallery to do that for us. So I'm going to insert a container, and I'm going to call this container my category main container. Let's just move this container to, I don't want it right at the edge here. Let's make it, the width here, I'm going to make it 850. And let's just drag, using this hand, drag it down, not all the way to the bottom, but near the bottom there. And then I'm going to add another container, which is going to be my header container. Put that at the top. I want this to be height-wise, let's make it 50. And again, let's just drag that to the very edge. I'm going to call this my cat header. I want to add some labels in here, so I'm going to do the plus sign here, and I'm going to add text label here. So let's create my template. So this is going to be very top. Let's make it a little bit wider. I think as far as the font size, let's make it 25. Let's make it white. Yeah, and let's make it semi-bold. I want it to be in the middle. Alignment, so let's make the vertical alignment in the middle as well. Great. I think that works. And let's do the fill. And I want the fill to be the same as this. So if I select this rectangle here, yeah, and I look at the fill, there you go. I'm just going to copy that from the bar, do Control Copy, Escape, reselect my label here, do the fill property, just paste that in, and there you go. It's exactly the same colour. So let's name this as my text cat header. So cat header, yeah, like so. Let's make this a little bit wider. So with that selected, I'm going to right click on it and do copy, and then I'm just going to paste it, and let's call this one, so let's change the text in this one to be category, and this one I'm just going to move it down below that. I'm going to call this my priority header. Okay, so text priority header. Hit return. And again, the text in this is going to be priority. Hit return. Wonderful. Now, as far as this, I want to be able to resize this and this to move. So what I'm going to do is, with my text priority header selected, I'm going to go to the X property, which is basically the position here. I'm going to change it from that, and I'm going to use the text cat header dot X value plus the text cat header dot width. Yeah, plus just one for some padding between the headers. And there you go. So if I take this now, that one will move automatically. Perfect. So that's the header. And that's we now need another container, but I'm then going to put the gallery control, which is where we're going to hold our data. So I'm going with the main category container selected, I'm going to do insert another container. Now this one, it's a line up just there against the header. I'm going to put it all the way to the right and also all the way down to the bottom just to fill it. Yeah, and I'm going to call this container gallery, well, category cat container cat data. Yeah, then I'm going to do the plus and I'm going to do a vertical gallery. I'm just going to hit the X on this one, and then the layout, I'm just going to make that blank. Okay. Now with this, again, I'm just going to stretch it so it's the same. It fills the whole of the container, and I'm going to rename this gallery here. So I'm going to call this my category gallery. Yeah. Return. Now, as far as items here, I'm just going to point this to my collection category. Yeah. And I'm then going to go into edit mode. So with the gallery selected, I'm going to select edit, which brings this pane up, and then I'm going to add 2 fields into this. So I'm going to insert text input. Let's put that to the top right. And then I'm going to insert a number input. Let's move this over to the right and let's just make that a little bit thinner. And then what I'm going to do on these is I'm going to say the value of the text input. So let's move this to the top. Let's rename that to be category. It's text input category, like so. This one I'm going to rename it to be number input priority. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make font size 25. Let's make it 25. I think that's fine. Let's make the height of this, I'm going to make it 45. And the same with the priority, the number input priority, I'm going to make that height 45. And I'm going to make the font size 25. Okay. So I'm going to make this match the width of the category header. So when I move this, this will resize as well. And the way that I do that is I'm going to go into the width property of the text input category. And again, I'm just going to get rid of the number that's there. And I'm going to say text cat header dot width. Boom. And this, as far as the priority, I'm going to make that match the priority header width as well. So again, go to the priority, go to the width property, sorry, get rid of the number. And I'm going to do text priority header, this one, dot width. And then I want it to move with this. So as this moves, I want it to move. So I'm going to align the X property with this. So I'm going to choose the X property And again, I'm just going to make that be text input category. Text input category dot X property plus the text input category dot width, and then +1 for padding. Yeah, if I look at that, that looks fine. And the one thing I do want to do is let's take this property here for this. I want it to be aligned with that. So if I go to the template size, I'm just going to make that 50. I'll make that 45, sorry. Yeah. And there you go. And let's add some values into this. If I go here and choose the value property, which is going to be this item. So remember, it's linked to the collections. This item dot title, boom, and this one, the value property, is going to be linked to this item priority. And let's make that middle line there, actually. There you go. So you can see it's slightly out of line here, so I'm just going to make the padding property on the gallery here defaults to 5 here, so I'm going to make that 1. Okay, so let's just save that, and then what I'm going to do is go into here. I'm just going to add another item in here so we can see it. So again, let's put a regulatory one in there. There you go. Yeah. Let's make that 2, priority 2, save it. And then if I then go to the template, it's not there, and there you go, it's pulled it through. So that seems to work wonderfully. What I'm going to do is on the container cat data, I don't want any outline there, I don't want to see it. And on the header container, I'm going to get rid of that drop down shadow as well. I'm just going to keep the main one there, so I've got a guide of where everything is at the moment. I'm going to put some buttons over here. So now we've got the data pulling through. We now need to be able to make changes to this. So that's what we'll do. Next is we'll bring through the ability to put this almost like SharePoint into an edit grid mode, and then exit edit grid mode so we can save changes and add new records. So let's think about the edit grid mode. How are we going to do that? So I want to switch this from an edit mode to a view mode. So the first thing I've got to do is create a variable. So with the app selected here in the tree view, I'm going to select on start, and let me just expand the formula bar here. So with on start selected, I'm going to type set. My variable is going to be var cat edit, and I'm going to set it to false. So I'm going to do comma false, I'll do, then close the bracket. So that's so I've created this variable here, named it, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on app and do run on start. And when I select this variable, you can see it's at false. Okay, so let me just shrink that down. I'm then going to insert a button, and this button, let's make it a little bit wider, let's make it a little bit height, adjust the height, and then font size, let's make that 25 also, let's make it middle and vertically aligned in the middle. So yeah, and I'm going to copy that as a template. So I'm going to select it, right click on it and do copy, and then paste it twice. So let's move that down there, and let's move that. Boom. So this one, let me just change the text there, is going to be my new, so I want to add new records. This one is if I want to undo any changes that I've done. So that'll be undo. And this is where I'm going to enter and exit edit mode. So with that one selected, I'm going to put it at the top, like so. And I'm going to rename it as BTN for button, and I'm going to be edit mode. Yeah. Select this one. Right, so I want this one, which is this button here, and I'm just going to move that up. And then rename that one to be BTN cat new button. Just rename this one because I want that to be edit mode cat categories, and then this last one I'm going to rename it to be BTN cat undo. So I've renamed them all. So this one, this is where I want it to be a dynamic text on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the text property here, and I'm going to do the drop down here, and I'm just going to go if var cat edit, that variable we just set up. So if it's true, I'm going to do exit edit mode, or if it's false, I'm going to say it's edit mode. Yeah, and I'm going to close the bracket on that. Yeah, save that, and then on the unselect property, what I want to do is each time we click it, it changes that var edit variable that we've just done. So if I do set, open that bracket and do var, so there's our var cat edit. Now all I'm going to do is I want it to change it to the opposite of what it currently is. And the way that I do that is I use the exclamation mark and then type var edit. So if it's true, it'll change to false, and if it's false, it'll change it to true. And close the bracket on that and save. So let's try that out. Boom. It's now working. Wonderful. And now I'm going to change the display mode on my category, my gallery here. Let's go to the display mode, and again, I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to do if var cat edit, or if it's true, then its display mode is in edit mode. If it's false, display mode is going to be view only. Let me close that bracket on that. Yeah. Do save. Let's try that out now. So at the moment I can't make any changes in here, but if I go edit mode, it now goes into edit mode. Wonderful. Right. So let me close that down. So there we have now the ability to switch it in and out of edit mode. So now we can flip between edit mode and view mode. The next thing I want to look at doing is how do I, when I make changes in here, is then save it back to SharePoint. So let's look at how we do that. So the first thing is, let's go into exit edit mode here and then on select. I'll just expand this. So at the moment we've got it flipping that varcat edit from true to false and vice versa. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do some returns here, and I'm going to write if var edit. So in other words, if that's true, because this is a boolean that we've set up, if that's true, then I'm going to patch. So I'm going to patch to my record categories, and what I'm patching is the collection, which is my cold category data. So I close the bracket on the patch, close the bracket on if edit, and I'm going to do a semicolon to end that and do a new line. And then what I want to do is, once I've written that back to SharePoint, is I want to reload the data. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to do select, so the BTN button, add cat data, which will reload. So it'll do that clear select, so it'll reload the data. And again, I'm going to do a semicolon there. Now here's a tip. What I'm going to do is, you see this format text. If I format the text, let's just drag this down a little bit. You can now see where, because sometimes it gets really complicated as you're building this out, and they're a bit like nested if statements in Excel. So I can see that this if statement ends and terminates there. You see the lines, the way the lines help you see how they're lined up. So with that, if I then just save that. Now, at the moment, if we just play this and I make this change to 3, for example, and do exit edit mode, see it goes back. It doesn't actually write anything. And the reason being is that we've not actually saved any changes here back to our collection. So let me go back into edit mode there, and let's just go back into the design mode in the edit mode here, as far as editing the form. So we need a way of saving any changes we make here back to the collection. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the gallery here, and then I'm going to do insert another button. And let's drag this button over to the right, and I'm going to make it the same height, and let's just make it a little bit smaller. And there's the button. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this down below, just so from a tab ordering perspective, it goes from here to the save button. And let's call this cat save. Yeah. Return. So I'm going to make some changes to this. So with that button still selected over here, I'm going to call it just save. The icon, I'm going to do a search and do save. And there's that save icon there. I'm going to put that on there, see how it's appeared. And then as far as the layout, I'm just going to say icon only. Yeah. And then what I'm going to do is, let's make it middle aligned. Let's make it vertically aligned in the middle as well. Let's go down here, and the font size, let's make it bigger. So I'm going to make it 25, same as everything else. And hit enter. I think I could probably make this a little bit thinner. There you go. So that works for me. Then what I'm going to do is get this to move off this as well. So I'm going to do the X value here. So this button here is the number input. So I'm going to do number input dot x plus the number input priority dot width, and then I'm just going to put a bit of padding, so I'm going to do plus 5. Yeah. So now you can see that that should just, if I move all this, it all moves together. Perfect. Okay. So now what we need to do on this button is we need to set the onSelect property. So what I want it to do is when we make a change, we then hit this save and it writes that back to the collection. So it updates the collection. So let's choose the onSelect and let me just expand this out. So I'm going to get rid of that. So I've got the onSelect property selected here. Let's get rid of that select parent here. So in effect, I need to patch the collection with this item. So let's type patch. So the record or the collection that I'm going to do is the collection category data. So I'm going to write it back to that. And what I want to write is this item, literally just this item, and then close the bracket on that patch. Now, because it's a patch, I actually want to, what I want to do is do comma, and I want to just tell it the details of what I want to change. So it's going to be, I'm going to do an open curly bracket. So I want to change the title or amend the title with the text input category. Yeah. So if I start typing text input category, and I want to take the value from that, I'm then going to do a comma. I then want to update the priority. So there's the priority. Notice it's got the colon there as well. And then I want to use the number input priority dot value. I'm then going to close the curly brackets, and then I'm going to close the bracket on the patch. Yeah. And again, I'm just going to do the formatting so it sorts this, so it organizes this, and I can see how it's organized it. And then the other thing I'm going to do here, so I'm going to press save, is I want to change this visible property. So I only want this visible when we're in edit mode. And the way that I'm going to do that is go to the visible property of the button. And you guessed it, I'm just going to put the var cat edit. So if it's true, it shows it. If it's false, it'll disappear. Yeah. So if I do save there, and if I go press play, and I do exit edit mode, there you go. What I'm going to do also is I'm just going to go, let's just go close this down. I'm going to change this so it sorts it by priority, because eventually when we do new record, it'll have the default of 0, and I want new records to appear at the top. So what I'm going to do is on the category, I'm just going to change this here. So let me just expand this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do return, and I'm just going to add sort, and then press tab. And the reason why I do a return here, let me just show you what happens, because this irritates me, to be honest, is if I don't do return and I do sort like that and then press tab, it literally deletes the collection thing. So that's why I do the return and always do it. So when I tab and it creates that bracket automatically, it doesn't delete stuff. So let me just add the whole category data. So we're going to sort that, yeah, and we're going to sort it by the priority. And I'm going to do a comma again and sort it ascending. And then we just close the bracket on that. And let me just format that. And there you go. It's organized it for me. And if I just press save again, And now if we just press play and I go into edit mode, and let's change this one to be 3. Yeah, and I do save. So you see, based on me saving that to the collection, it's now reorganized it. And if I do exit edit mode, there you go. If I go to SharePoint and we just look at this and I refresh it, there you go. It's changed. Let's go back to our Power App. I'm going to do edit mode. Let's change this back to 1 and do save, do exit edit mode, and there you go. If I go back to SharePoint and do refresh, boom, wonderful. So we can now edit existing records. So now that we can edit existing records, we need to give ourselves the ability to add new records with this new button. So let me come out of and go back into edit mode, click the X button. So I need to do something with the new button over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the new button, button cat new, and on the select property of that, let me just expand that again so you can see what I'm typing. Is I'm going to, so what we're going to do is we're going to use the collect function. So as we load the data, we've used clear collect, so that clears the collection and then reloads the data, but we want to append stuff to that collection. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to do collect. And simplistically, to the call category data, we want to add the defaults, so use the defaults function of the categories SharePoint list, and close the bracket on that and close the bracket again. And if I then just do a format that text so it just organizes it for us. So let's see what that does. I'm going to save, and if I do Alt, hold down the Alt key and do new here, press that, and there you go. It's added us a new record which we can then update. Now, so let me just come off that, and if I just reload that, it'll disappear because we've not saved it to, we've not written it back yet. So what we need to be able to do here, so if I just put us into edit mode, is that defaults piece, each time we call it, and it never changes, is quite, it uses a lot of resources, so it's quite an expensive action to do. So really we want to only do this once and then reference it. So what we need to do is on the apps, on start, what we're going to do is we're going to add another variable. So I'm going to put semicolon there, do a return, and then I'm going to do set. I'm going to call this var cat new record, comma, and I'm going to set that to defaults categories. So I'm going to do it once because it never changes, and close that bracket and then close it on the set and do a semicolon. And if I then run, so right click on apps and do run on start, and now if I click on that, and then you can see we've now got the defaults come through. So then all I need to do then is on the new record, if I then expand that, is I'm going to get rid of the defaults piece and I'm going to swap that out for the var cat new record. Yeah. If I just save that, again, let's just do a test. I'm going to do Alt, press play, and boom. So that now works. So let me just, and obviously I only want this button to be visible when we're in edit mode, by the way. So I'm just going to release the Alt key and we're fine. Let me just put us into edit mode actually. And obviously me putting us into edit mode, it's just got rid of that because we didn't save it. Now, the problem that we've got with a new record is if we look at the if we just look at this, yeah, and it's going to be blank. So if I try saving that, so let's try saving it to our collection, and you can see what I'm talking about, because fundamentally there's going to be no IDs, or it's going to duplicate IDs, and that's going to cause a problem. So, and let me just do it to explain it. So if I go play here and we do new, and let's type test record here. Let's make this a 3, and I save it to the collection. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come out of this, and if we look at the collection here, so if I then go to here, my variables, and look at my collections, and there you can see my cold category data. If I say view the table, is what you can see is that you can see that there's our records, but there's that new record that we've created, yeah. And what you can see, there's no ID. We've not given it an ID, yeah. And we need to, if we're working with it and we're making changes to it, is that we need to write a temporary ID to this record. So when we are, it doesn't cause any conflicts. So, because if I create another one, and if we go Alt, and obviously it's got, if I do another new, yeah, and let's just do test. Go to play mode actually, and do test record 2. Let's give this a 4 and save. And then come out of that, and again, if I just look at this, view the table, we've now got 2, but they've got no ID. So I need to give them some temporary IDs. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cancel that, and what I'm going to do is if I just come off it and reload it, so it'll literally get rid of them, so they're not there anymore. Yeah, is what I'm going to do is we need to do something about having an ID. So what I'm going to do is go to app, expand this, and I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to call this set, and I'm going to call this var cat temp ID, and the value that I'm going to set, so this is category, so I'm going to put a number in here that's higher than it's ever going to be. So I'm just going to put, you know, a very high number, yeah, and then I'm going to run it. So right click on apps and run. And then if I select this, you can now see that I've set a high number there. So that's what I've got, like almost 1 million there. It's never going to get that high. And then what I'm going to do is on the new record here, is if I go into the new record and open this up, is I'm going to patch this here before I write it, before I write it to the collection. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to patch. You see it's deleted that, so I'm just going to undo it. So what I'm going to do is just do a return there so I don't lose it. Yeah. So I'm going to patch it. So I'm patching this record here. So let me just bring that up. So I'm going to patch that record, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to add an ID. So I'm going to do the curly lines and just do ID. And I'm going to make it var cat temp ID, yeah, and I'm going to close the squiggly lines there. So and then just close the bracket on the patch. Yeah. So let's just look at that. Does that look okay? Patch Bearcat new record. Now what you can see here is I'm not getting this format text here, so that's giving me an indication that something's wrong. And I can see there I've got patch. I don't know how I did that, wasn't paying attention, and all of a sudden it's fine. So I'm now going to format that. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to collect and add it to this collection. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an ID. I'm going to add that Bearcat temp. But each time I do this, I want to create a unique ID. So what I'm going to do before that collection, so I'm going to do a return, and I'm going to do set that variable, and I'm going to set it to var +1. So each time I do this on select, it's just going to add 1 to that cat ID. If I format that, right, that should work now. So if I do save, so let's also make this so it's only visible in edit mode. So I'm going to go to visible, and again I'm just going to do var cat edit, so it's no longer visible. So now if I go save that and go into play, I do edit mode and I do new, and let's give ourselves a category. So I'm going to do let's do maintenance. Let's make that 3. I save that, and let's do another new one. Let's do that one, hearts and hearts and minds. Let's make that 4. Save it. And if I then come out of this, let's see what it's done. I'll go into my variables. There's my collection. Let's view it and view the table. And there we can see it's added some new things. Now you can see it's not actually done it right here, and that's because we didn't actually run the start. So let me just do that. What I mean by that is I didn't load the variable. I didn't do the run on start just to set the variable. So let me come off it, go back into it. It disappears. Let me just run the on start. Yeah, so everything is reset. I then go into play mode, do edit. Yeah, I then do new, and let's do that again. So let's do maintenance. Let's make that 3. Save it. Let's do another new one. Let's do hearts and minds. 4. Save that one. Now let's see if we got that right. I say we, me. If I then go into variables, let's go view table, and there you go. It's now creating those unique numbers. I didn't want it to create the same one because it created conflicts. So in effect, that gives us something to work with now, where we can now add new numbers. So how do we write these new records back to SharePoint? Well, we've obviously got to make another amendment to our patching on the exit. So we just do cancel there. So on the exit edit, what I'm going to do is I just need to do a check, and I need to update my collection, because what I need to do at this point then is I just need to remove that that temp ID. And the reason being is if I then look at this table, and the way that I can do it is that anything that's new doesn't have a created date, so I can get rid of that blank. Yeah, so let me just do cancel there. So you'll notice there on the table that our new records don't have a created because they haven't been created in SharePoint yet. So let me just cancel that. So on the exit edit, I'm just going to write here, and again I'm just going to do return because I don't want to delete. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do use the update if. So I'm going to update the collection here if I'm going to do a comma after this, do comma if created. So if created equals, I'm going to use the blank function. So if that equals blank, then again curly lines, I'm then going to set my ID back to blank. I'm going to close a bracket on the blank, close the curly line, and then I'm going to close the bracket on the update if. Let's just format text. It's organized it. So let's see if that now works. If I do the exit, let's do exit edit mode. They seem to be there. Let's go to SharePoint. Let's refresh SharePoint. And there you go. We've added a new record. So let's just add one more. So we've got hearts and minds. If I go edit mode, let's do new. And let's do question mark space, and let's do discretionary. Let's make that number 5. Save it. Exit edit mode. SharePoint. Let's do a refresh. And there you go. So we got 1, 2, 3. We got maintenance is 3, and we got hearts and minds. There's a 4 and a 5. But obviously here it's displaying it all correctly. So we can now edit existing records. We can add new records. But what if we want to undo any changes that we make? So let me just add another new record here. And let me just then come out of going back into design mode. So we need to do something with the undo button on select. And again, I only want, so on the on select is what we're going to do. It's kind of simple really. Is I am going to do select our button control to reload our cat, because all we've got to do is discard what we've done and just reload the add cat data. Yeah, so I'm going to do a semicolon there, and then I'm just going to reset the variable, the edit variable. So I'm going to do set var cat edit, and I'm just going to set it the opposite. So exclamation mark var cat edit, and there you go. And if I just format that, that all looks fine. So if we now run that, if I save it and run it, if I do undo, there you go. So I can go in here and I can make changes here. Save it to the collection. I can save that. Yeah. Save that. And if I hit undo, it won't, instead of exit mode to undo, just puts everything back to what it was. So now I want to make this only visible when we're in edit mode. So if I then go back into design mode, select undo, go to the visible property, and let's just set that to my there cat edit, and there you go. So if I do save there and do play, do exit, let's do a bunch of news, change my mind, I'm going to do an undo. Boom. So that is how we do the undo function. But what if we want to delete a record? So if I go into edit mode and I do new, and let's just do test record. Let's make this 6, save it, do exit mode. So it's written it now to our SharePoint site. Or if I want to delete that, do I have to go to SharePoint here? If I do refresh, there's that test record. What if I want to delete that? So let's go back to our app, and we need to add a delete capability. So if I go into edit mode here, I'm then going to go back into the design edit mode of the form, the Power App. So I need to add another button, which is a delete button. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this button here, I'm going to right click on it, I'm going to do copy, and then I'm going to do Control V to paste it, and I should have another button there. So let's change that. So go back to my tree view here. There's that button I've just created. I'm going to move it to just after cat save. Let's rename it. I'm going to call this cat delete. So rename it. As far as let's just get rid of the on select here. I'm just going to get rid of that for a second. Leave it blank. I want to change that icon. So let's change the text to be delete. Let's change the icon here. I'm going to search for delete icon. There it is. Let's change that. Everything else stays the same as far as the visibility. Yeah. So let's now select the X property because I want it to feed off this one. So I'm going to go down to the X property. Let's change that number. So let me open it up. So I want it to be the btn cat save. So button cat save there. Dot the X property plus the button cat save dot width. Again, just put some padding, so I'm going to do +5. There you go. And that now does it. As far as the delete function itself, let's put some code in there, because what I want to do on the delete is I want to create another collection for all my deleted items, because I've obviously got to remember to remove it from SharePoint, but also I want to remove it from my current collection as well. So let's go on to the select here and do the on select property. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add another collection, create it, and I'm going to call this my collection cat delete. That's what I'm going to call it. And all I'm going to do is add this item. Yeah. Let's close the bracket on that collect and then do semicolon. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove it from my collection. So I'm going to do remove col category data. and again it's going to be this item. And I'm going to close the bracket and do a semicolon. Let's format that. Wonderful. So that works. Yeah. So let's just test it here. And if I do save and play, if I take this and do delete, it's gone. However, if we were to reset everything, it would obviously reappear. So the next thing I need to do is I need to add that to my actual code. Yeah. So I need to remove it from my data, from the SharePoint list. If that makes sense. If I close that down, I need to add something into this exit on select. So it's in their edit. Yeah. So there's the if statement there. So if we're in their edit, so what I'm going to do is after the patch, yeah, I'm just going to do a colon there and do a return. I'm then going to remove, yeah, I'm going to remove from the SharePoint categories, I'm going to remove the col cat delete. Yeah. So I'm going to literally just remove that and do another semicolon. So if I then just format that, so once it's removed it and done all that, so after that, so I'm then going to again, so there's where the if statement ends. So I'm going to do another return. I just want to clear that col cat delete. So I'm just going to clear it out, and then do a semicolon, format. So let's just save that and test it. Let's do exit. Let's go back to SharePoint. So there it is. If I do a refresh, and it's gone. So we know a way of deleting, and also I can delete multiple things there. Now, so we can now edit existing. We can do add new records. We can undo any changes that we've made. We can do that, and we can also delete records as well. So next we need to think about some information. We need to let the user know that stuff's been saved correctly, or if indeed there are any errors with the save. So let's look at that next. So first of all, let's look at some visual indicators. So for example, if I do a new record here, we know we've got to create a category and it has to be unique. So let's first of all make sure that the user visually knows that this has to be populated with something. So again, let's go back into the edit mode of the form. So on the header here of this, let's put an indication here. So typically what notifies something as mandatory is an asterisk. Just add that to the text and hit return. So we now got this asterisk. So I want this border to go red if it's blank. Yes, so we know we've got to do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my, on this here, which is a text input category, yeah, is I want to change the border color. So I'm going to go onto the property border color, which is blank at the moment. Let me just expand that out. So what I want to do is I want to check if it's blank. So if is blank. So I'm going to check this. So it's self.value. Yeah. That again. Dot value. You select it. Close the bracket on these blank. Yeah. Then all I'm going to do is I set the color. property to red. I'm going to close the bracket on if. Let's do format. There we go. Come out of that. And you can see it's now showing it as red. Wonderful. So we've now set the property, but we also want to make sure that when we do the before we patch the record, we want it to do a check, don't we? So let's go back to the exit edit mode here on select. So what we want to do before we do a patch, so before we do this here is we want to make sure there's no errors. So what I'm going to do is do a return. I'm going to do another if statement, and what I want to check is if the title in my collection is blank. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do so I want to do a lookup in my collection, so I'm going to do the opposite to is blank, so I'm going to use the exclamation mark blank. I'm then going to do lookup, use the lookup function, and I'm going to look in my collection category data, and I'm going to do comma, and that's where the title equals blank, or, and the way to do or is if I do the pipe character, so that's or, double pipe, or title equals just empty. So it's going to look that up. If it finds, if it's not blank, so I'm then going to, so I'll close the bracket on the lookup. I'm going to close the bracket on these blank. So if it's the opposite to blank, then I need to notify. So let me just do a return. So let me just do a space and do return a new line. So if that is filled with something because it's pulled something through via the lookup, is then what I need to do is notify. So I'm going to do a notify function, and I'm just going to say, please complete mandatory fields. Close the quotation marks on that text, and then I'm going to do the notification type is going to be error, and I'm going to display it for 4 seconds, which is 4,000. I'm then going to close the bracket on that error notification. I'm then going to do a comma, because if that becomes false, I don't need to do the error. I can proceed with this here. All I'm going to do is put a bracket there, which closes out the if function. Let's just format that. So now you can see, so if this is true, then it's going to give me an error. Otherwise, it's going to do the patch. Wonderful. So let's test that. So let's save that and do play. So what I'm going to do is just put something there and just save it. So I've got a blank one there. If I do exit edit mode, and there you can see I've got the error appear up here, and it's removed it. Good. So that's how we handle errors. But how do I let the user know that that a save has been successful? So if I just put that back into edit mode, and then let's just close that down. let's just look at this on select. So we've got here where if it's done it, yeah, so here remove categories is I'm just going to do after that, I'm going to do another notify. I'm going to say changes saved successfully. Yeah, let me make that an uppercase S there. Close the quotation marks, do comma, and the notification type is going to be success. I'm going to comma and just save that, show that for 4 seconds, and then just close the bracket on the notification. I'm just going to do a semicolon there. Let's just format that. So that should display if we make any changes. So let me just go save that. Let's play it and test it. Let's just do new. Let's do a test record here. So do test record. That red's gone. Wonderful. Let's make that 6. Save it. Let's exit. And there you go. It says changes saved successfully. Wonderful. Now, as you know, we set the parameters on SharePoint. So on SharePoint here, on the category, we said to SharePoint, this has to, but we have to enforce a unique record. So if I then go into edit mode and let's do a new record, and I call this one test record as well, make this 7, save it. I do exit, I'm going to get a system failure here. So it's saying there's something wrong, but I want to give the user a little bit more information on this. Yeah. So again, I want to make it clear that you can't have duplicates. So what I'm going to do is again put it back into edit mode. Let's come out of that, and on this on select, what I want to do is I want to do an is out. So what I'm going to do is expand this so I can see all of it. It's starting to get expansive. So before I do, what I want to do is check that any of this, yeah, from here to here, is I'm going to wrap that in another if statement. So what I'm going to do is, in fact, I could probably do it from here to here, yeah, just to make it clearer. So I'm going to do a return, then let's do another if statement. So I'm going to do if, open bracket, I'm then going to do is error. So if any of this up until that point is an error, yeah, so, and I'm just going to close the bracket here on the is error, yeah. I'm then going to do a notification. Yeah, I'm going to do a notification, and I'm going to say notify, and what I'm going to do is just type error. Come on, in quotation marks, I say category needs to be unique. An exclamation mark there, close the quotation marks. Again, the notification type is going to be error, and I'm going to show it for 4 seconds, like so. And I'm going to close the bracket on that notification. I'm going to do the semicolon, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the bracket on that that if statement. Now at the moment it's giving me an error, so there's the, so I've closed the bracket there, close the bracket on notify, and let's just make sure. So that's the if statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of that. I'm going to do a return. So if goes to there, actually I'm going to do that and do a return. That closes the bracket on the is error there. So let's just check that. Yeah, you can see it's done that. I'm then going to do a comma. I'm then going to notify that there's an error. Yeah. And then I need to close the bracket on the final if statement. And I'm then going to do a colon there. There you go. Just got to work it out. Let's just format that text. And there you go. It's now organized everything. So you're going to take your time with this stuff. Let me just do save. So let's test that now. So let's add another new test record here. And let's make that 7, save it, do exit, and there you go, error, category needs to be unique. So if I then, and obviously that's showing for 4 seconds and will then disappear. If I do edit mode, let's just delete that there, do exit, and changes saved successfully. And there you go. So now what we've done is we've created a form. The next thing, I don't need this here now, I was using it as a guide. So let me come out of edit mode and select the category main. And all I'm going to do is take that drop shadow and make none. Save it. Let's do play. And there you go. So if I do edit mode, let's add a new record. Let's call this test 1. Boom, 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 boom. 6. Save it. Let's do another one. Let's do a couple. Yeah. Let's make this test 2. Let's make that 7. Save that one. Let's make this test 3. Yeah. Save it. And let's make this test 4. 10. Save it. Let's exit the edit mode. Save. Let's go to SharePoint. Let's do refresh. All there. If I go back into here and do edit mode, let's just delete these. Do undo. Reloads them. It's fine. Let's do edit. Let's delete these now. Get rid of them. Do exit. Change save successfully. Let's go to SharePoint. Let's do a refresh. Boom. There we go. So there's our first form. Hopefully you found that useful. So we can now add, we can view records, we can edit them, we can undo changes, we can add new records, etc. And we've got some error handling in there to let the user know what's going on. That is our categories form. In the next video, I'll continue this series where we will build the program and the projects tables and those user forms, and then we'll build the cross-reference form where I'll show you how to do dependent drop-downs. So I hope you found this informative. If so, please remember to click that like, subscribe, and smash that notifications button for future content. And as always, I wish you an absolutely wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Please take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video from Change, Tips and Tools. Bye bye now.